Hello, my name is Carl, and this is the miter saw stand that I originally published a YouTube video on almost a year ago. And at that time I asked if anybody would be interested in plans for this stand. And this surprising amount of you came back and said yes. And some of you came back a second time and said, when are you going to do it? Anyway, I looked at this and I decided there's no use making plans for this stand because my saw is not a sliding miter saw. And I suspect that many of you have sliding miter saws and would need a stand to accommodate them. So, what I did, I bought a sliding miter saw. And I built a stand with extra length at the back to accommodate the rails of the sliding saw. Here's the stand I built for the new sliding miter saw. It keeps all of the features of my original stand, the compact dimensions, so it takes up an absolute minimum amount of space when stored. The retracting casters. When the casters are retracted, the cabinet sits on its sides and front and back. It's not a braking system for the casters. The casters extended. It rolls easily on large caster wheels. Got a dust hood, accessories drawer, tip-out bin for cut-out pieces, and the tip-out bin simply lifts out for emptying, lifts off its hinge. There's a door over a compartment for storing large items. And I've kept the same work support wings with jackknife braces that fall down into place automatically, and simply a little bit of upward pressure breaks the jackknife and allows the work support wings to fold. And of course I've got a fence on each work support wing. So, what have I done different to accommodate the sliding saw? Several things. Of course, the hood is deeper, so it clears the back of the rails. And when I want to swing the saw for cutting miters, I just fold the work support wing out, and it clears the rails in the miter cut position. Both sides, springs holding closed. Dust collection system. Most of the dust is going to go from the saw's dust outlet through this 1.5-inch hose into an elbow and straight down into the 4-inch hose that's connected to my shop dust collection system. And then at the back of the top is opening to a plenum for dust collection, for the wide flying dust that hasn't come through the hose. For bevel cutting, the saw fence must be slid out of the way. So when you're doing bevel cuts with the saw, the fence is moved out of the way to provide clearance. So my fence also slides on slotted holes, so it can be slid out of the way of the saw fence. It's also slotted fore and aft a small amount, so the fence can be lined up with the fence on the saw. That covers most of the features of the stand. I'm going to offer plans, and if you go to my website, there's a place to order plans. You will need a credit card, but that's all. You do not need a PayPal account. And with the plans, with the plans, 11 pages of drawings, mostly three-dimensional drawings, cabinet, caster system, the work support wings and their fences and the braces for them, drawer, door, tip-out bin, dust collection system, the baffles, the side baffles, the swing out side baffles, pedal latch, and a repeat cut stop. I forgot to mention, but I have made a repeat cut stop which just clamps to the fence with a stiff compression spring. And it grips tightly. It doesn't move anywhere, and it has a little flip up for making the first cut to score off the end of stock, and flip down for making repeat cuts. I've even I've done a drawing to show how best to lay out all the parts for the saw on one sheet of Baltic birch plywood, one 5-foot by 5-foot sheet. With the plans, 4 pages of materials, cut list and all the materials required, all the dimensions and quantities, thicknesses, etc. 4 pages. And then 12 pages with over 60 color pictures showing assembly steps and tips. In addition to that, there's access to 4 videos, and here's a sampling of the 4 videos that you'll have access to if you order the plans. I've temporarily assembled the floor and the sides with cauls and the clamp blocks. And what I'm going to do, mark the holes for the top. This is one of the 4 bolts that will hold the saw and the top onto the sides. I put a couple of spacers on here to simulate the saw base and the top. Little oil on the threads. And we're going to put the nut on this cross drilling. And I'm going to plug the holes with some auto body filler. I keep this stuff around for using as a filler on painted work, and we're just going to mix up maybe a tablespoon hardener, cream hardener, and I'm going to shove these full of filler. Support wings, and at the inner end it's going to be a doubler with a hole for a pivot rod on which the wings to fold up and to pivot up and down. And at the forward edge, I'll add a second layer of 5/8 plywood to strengthen the work support wings. To make the hole for the pivot rod, I'm just going to use a dado blade, 1/4 inch wide, a dado blade stack, 1/4 inch wide. And I'm going to make a hole on each of these blocks, a square hole for the pivot rod to nest in. Final detail for the work support wings, and that is a fence for each one. I've made up a fence with a base board and a face board and 3 bolts by which the fence is attached to the wing. The 3 bolts are in long slots, so I can move the fence out and move the saw fence fully out to give clearance for bevel cuts. I made the slots by gluing 4 spacers to the baseboard and then gluing a long strip to the back side of the spacers. Here are the tip-out bin side pieces. And we've glued in place the floor pieces, corner blocks, and a couple of side stiffener pieces. Leave room between the the front corner blocks, back corner blocks, and the floor. Tip-out door hinge is a piece of 5/8 dowel and half of a piece of PVC tube that I split on the bandsaw. The dowel was 5/8. I've flattened one side down to so it's a height of 9/16. Or in metric, it's a 16 millimeter dowel and it's down to 14.3 millimeters. What I need to do is saw or drill in the floor support boards of the tip-out bin a hole to form a notch to ride on the PVC tube. Here's the main part of my dust collection system. I've made up this floor of a plenum which has on top another spacer. So this will be bolted and screwed to the underside of the miter saw top, and into the bottom I've added a 4x10 home heating system air diffuser, silicone sealed and nailed in place. And then on this bottom edge I've added an extra layer of material, so I'll have double thickness at the back here to attach my rear dust hood to. The wide flying dust is going to come down theoretically behind the top and in on top of the floor of the plenum into this area. The other part of the dust collection system is this 32-inch, 80-centimeter hose which connects to the saw dust outlet, to this elbow, and to this piece of tubing that goes down right into the center of the plenum, the center of this air diffuser duct, and into the dust collection system in my shop. I've got a couple of last-minute changes. I nipped off the corner of these side baffles just for appearance, and I've added a couple of clamps to control the cord. But I think I've got a good design for a miter saw stand for a home workshop, especially if space is a bit restricted. You might think about building the stand in stages. Certainly if you build the stand with the casters and the work support wings, you'd have quite a useful, workable stand, and perhaps add the tip-out bin, drawer, dust control system at a later date. Food for thought. Anyway, if you'd like to order plans, please click the link below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for forwarding this to your friends and associates. And thanks for watching. Bye.